From the 1,400 square meters Crystal Cloud project in Austria to the Glass Garden in Los Angeles and the Crystal Cloud at the jewel Changi, Singapore airport. These stunning works invite those lucky enough to view them into a dream world of crystal clouds. They were created by landscape artists Andy Cao and Xavier Perrot. For 20 years, the Cao Perrot duo has surprised landscape architects around the world by turning simple and rustic materials such as rattan, bamboo, fishing lines, nets, and high-quality materials such as glass and metal into incredible works of art. By utilizing natural light, the works become unique art spaces that blur the line between art and landscape.
You've just watched a series of public art installation, intimate gardens all around the world. And the recurring theme is the cloudy garden. And we are very lucky to have here today our guests who are internationally recognized landscape artists Andy Cao and Xavier Perrot. Well, thank you to both of you for joining Talk Vietnam today. So our first question is the concept of landscape art. Can you help us understand more about this terminology?
We were trained as landscape architects, landscape designers, and since the beginning of our career, we chose to do our own things the way we see things, in a different way than just planting plants, but also taking this idea of a garden, for example, could be a total environment. So we like to draw from all kinds of influences, and we apply them into the landscape. So it could be some different mediums that we use. We're not used to see in the landscape, so that's why we are more like landscape artists than landscape designers. So it's a blend of landscape and art to express, what we feel and how we see things.
Andy, do you want to add?
Just like what Xavier been saying, but at the same time, we are more interested in the emotional aspect when you are in that space. I think it's just a different way of seeing and experience landscape. It's still a garden. We're just making garden. If people say, what is it that you do? I say, I'm a gardener. I make garden. Our garden may look different, because you can, it's a playground. You can really try out different ideas, and you just need to have that ability to convince the client that that's what they need.
What's the difference between a landscape artist and an architect?
To me, it's not that much of a difference. I think an architect, your work is not only beautiful aesthetically, but it has to be functional as well. You pay a lot of attention to all the aspect of the functional aspect of the building. As a landscape artist, you can use the landscape as an art medium. Just like painting, just like sculpture. When you sculpt something, but you have more freedom. We were trained as landscape architect, and we could have been just landscape architect. But I find that's too restricted. I want to have more freedom. I don't want to adhere to any school of thoughts or any way of doing things or any trend or what's going on, what's the hardest thing at the moment. I mean, for us, we just want to do our own thing. And we've been very fortunate that somewhere out there, there's someone that like what we do and giving us that chance to make something.
Blurring the line between art and landscape is a style that Cao Perrot has pursued for more than 2 decades. This unique approach incidentally creates beautiful and dreamy spaces that allow viewers to step into art installations, public art projects, garden design, parks, and events. Using light refraction to recreate evocative moments, Cao Perrot also uses exquisite craftsmanship through everyday materials such as wire mesh, recycled glass, crystal, nickel, fishing line, and mats to make landscapes that are poetic, soulful, and in harmony with the environment, and immediately bring up different emotions in viewers. Recreating natural elements such as clouds and trees, Cao Perrot's works do not require imagination, but instead make viewers focus on the experience of the work.
So now I want to discuss about your very first work, which is the glass garden. So tell me, where did you get the idea from?
Well, that was one of my many attempts to do my own garden. In the very early day after I graduated from school, and I wanted to do something. Like everyone else, I was looking for work but couldn't find any. So I ended up doing something in my own backyard of a rental house in Echo Park in Los Angeles. You know, looking back once very naively, when you think it would take 3 months, it would take 4 months to do a garden, but because I started out not knowing very much about the medium, and when you don't have much money, you know, to build a garden, you look for recycled material,
right.
You know, and I always drawn to the glass medium as an artistic expression, and I thought, well, is there a way to
But why did
explore?
you choose glass?
Well, the idea, what I wanted to do was, I was very much, drawn to the salt farm in Vietnam, and I thought there must be a material that can evoke that. Like you're looking at a salt mound, and then I just thought, well, there must be a medium out there that we can do this, and but I just like that translucent and sparkle quality that when you bring that medium outdoor, and it was just an experiment with a bucket of glass, and then it went on for 2.5 years, and it took 45 tons of recycled glass to make this garden. The garden is just my memory of Vietnam, because at that time I was struggling with the idea of you learn so much from school, but you just taught how to think, how to look at things, and lots of too many influences. So I thought, well, who am I? You know, because I didn't have a voice, I didn't know what I want to do. So 2.5 years was a very good time to just immerse myself and kind of discover who I am, what I want to do, and what I can do. Yeah.
So during that 2.5 years, what do you do every day? Do you remember?
Just work in the garden.
In the garden. Breaking the glass.
No. It's already crushed. You have to experiment, and you make it safe to walk on. But it's become like a painting medium. You can do washes of color. You can do gradation. It's just like painting the landscape. But it was more drawn on my childhood memory of Vietnam. I left Vietnam when I was 13. So there were places that I'm familiar with, and there are places that I only saw, you only saw in the photograph or seen in the photos. So,
do you remember the place where you saw this image of salt? What is the name of the place?
Well, it's in Phan Thiết. Yeah, the salt farm, and then there's many other places of the. It's loosely, it's more like an allegory, and it just it's like reimagine the landscape of my childhood memory. And it was just an experiment. I didn't anticipate the reaction or the response to it, and how that started my career. It wasn't doing for that. It was just like you have an idea, you want to see it through. And you discover this is the approach, the way that I like to work. You know, I didn't know whether that was installation or it's landscape. Or I wasn't paying much attention or really care about what is it. And when it was published and it was aired on PBS, and the reaction was everybody said, "What is it?" And they just all want to come and see. So that's how I started.
Fields, straw dunes, rivers, beaches, and salt fields. All images associated with childhood assembled together to create Andy Cao's first landscape artwork. This intimate garden immediately caused a shock that made the US media flock over here to find out more about it. With it, Andy Cao officially cemented his position in the landscape industry. This work was also included in the garden book by British publisher Phaidon Press, The 500 Most Iconic Gardens of All Time.
Xavier, what about your first work?
I did my own garden as well, back home at my parents' house in Brittany, in France. And so it was more like a landforms and planting work for this garden. So it was my little experiment as well. I was lucky enough to be able to experiment at home. And then soon after, I went to continue my studies, my landscape studies in a place called Chaumont-sur-Loire, where they have a garden festival, an international garden festival, every year. And that's where we met, because Andy was making a garden, was one of the selected artists to create a garden for this garden festival. After that, we just started to do our things together in Rome and then in the US and a little bit everywhere. Yeah. But yes, it's my first experiment was also a garden back home.
And how did you guys decide to team up?
At the garden festival in France, at Chaumont-sur-Loire, that was any student dream to one day get to build a garden there. And when my proposal was selected, so I went there, built a garden, and on my last day, just right before the opening, I met Xavier, and we're just talking, but it just happened that he speaks English, so we can communicate, and I just like his sensibility, and I thought, well, if I'm going to work with someone, or if I were to have, at that time he was so young, he was a student, I said if I have an assistant, it would be someone like that, with that sensibility. And I got my wish, because right after France, then I came back, and then I got a phone call, and I found out that I won the Rome Prize, so I get to go and stay at the American Academy in Rome for 1 year. That's when I called Xavier and said, would you like to come to Rome? Yeah. And then we've been working together since.
Born in Vietnam in 1966, Andy Cao's real name is Cao Thanh. He left Vietnam with his family and moved to the US at the age of 13. He graduated with a degree in landscape architecture after 10 years of studying at the California State Polytechnic University of Pomona. He was the first Vietnamese person to receive a Lowell Fellowship at Harvard University's Graduate School of Design in 2001 and a Rome Prize Fellowship from the American Academy in Rome. French artist Xavier Perrot studied landscape design at Saint-Hilaire School in Brittany and the International School of Parks, Gardens and Landscapes in Chaumont-sur-Loire, France. In 2008, Xavier received the Emerging Young Landscape Designer Award from the French Ministry of Culture and Communication. The two met in 2001 and founded Cao Perrot Studio, which has offices in Los Angeles and Paris. The two artists have combined their creative abilities and personalities to create a series of works that's been admired by artists around the world.
Now we have a very different artwork of you and Xavier, the Lullaby Garden. Can you share more about this installation?
Well, this was for a garden festival, a Cornerstone Garden Festival in the U.S. It's in Northern California, in Sonoma, the wine country. It's quite a beautiful place, and it's the first time they launched this garden festival. So the owner invited 11 artists, landscape architect, kind of multimedia, kind of mixed media, and we were one of the 11.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, if we were to do a garden here, what could it be? And we thought, well, how fun would it be if we don't rely on plants? Can it be still a garden? And we started with a simple idea, and then we thought, we really like those wood block print, the Japanese wood block print by Hokusai, and we thought, oh, how beautiful, those rolling waves. And we thought, let's create a landform, a sculpted landform. It looked like rolling waves. And
so this is like the rolling waves.
Yes.
And what material?
And we thought, well, to what material would it be? So we were thinking of a patchwork, with this section of carpet, and we thought, why don't we? This would be our my first time to go back to Vietnam. I thought, well, it'd be nice to do something where I come from. So we come up with the idea, and they like it. So off we went. We came to Vietnam in 2004. And knocking on doors, because we're looking for a village where they can do the knitting, At first we thought, well, they can weave this. Can they weave this carpet? But it was, the material was like a fishing line, nylon, and it's too slippery. So in the end, they said they have to hand knit the whole thing. And each day they can only do one section, 1 square meter. One piece, and there's about 200 sections that are different colors, so we have to...
200 days?
we thought 1 month, it ended up 3 months. So we have to see it through and learn how to sew things back together, because when we ship all this back to the U.S., we will have to assemble them.
Right.
And these lovely ladies from this whole village, they say, well, sit down, I'm going to show you how to, how to sew this thing together. And we put zipper, one-way zipper, so we can zip them together. And it was really fun. It's the whole journey. The Lullaby Garden came out from when we were out and about, exploring, the first time we came back to Vietnam, we went from north to south, and we go to all the, popular places. But also when we were at the farm, you can hear the mother singing lullaby songs, and we thought, oh, that's lovely. Why don't we incorporate sound into this? So we invited Nguyên Lê, musician Nguyên Lê and Hương Thanh, and incorporate their music in here, and also have a few lovely lullabies by Hương Thanh herself. So there's a vortex in there that the sound came out from that. It's like a siren car calling you out to the sea, and when you want to walk, when you enter this space, you have to remove your shoes, so you can really walk on this handmade carpet, hand knitted carpet, and we want people to actually feel the, on the labor work, the texture of these artisans that work with us. So that's just our own way of using one material, to create this fence, but also the carpet as a medium for this installation.
That's a beautiful choice and story.
In 2004, Lullaby Garden was created in California. 200 choir mart covered an area of 200 square meters, depicting undulating fields and hills that stretched out to the horizon. Fishing lines were hung up like a fence, interwoven into gaps that absorbed the sun that shined through. With a simulated background of the field and fishing village, Hương Thang's lullaby created a peaceful and soothing scene that evoked the emotions of Vietnamese expats and stunned international guests. Once again, Cao Perrot impressed the world landscape industry.
As you said, Lullaby Garden also marked the very first time that you came back to Vietnam after several decades apart. So can you share with us your emotion on that very special trip?
Well, we were a little bit nervous, I think, you know, because it's like, well, we don't know our way around. Everything changed, but within few days, I think it's a wonderful feeling. You feel like we never left. Myself, as though I never left. Mm-hmm. You know, I haven't. It feels like you just get right back in. You know, good thing I still speak Vietnamese and can read and write. So. But people can tell I'm not from here because I talk. They say I'm talking like I talk funny. You know, it's just your way, your expression. Yes. It's just of another time or something. So it takes a while to get used to the new lingo and everything. And
Xavier, was it your first time ever to Vietnam?
Yes, of course, yes. It was my first time. So back in 2004. So it was my first time in Vietnam. First time in Vietnam was my entry gate to Asia as well. That was the first time I would come to Asia, and so it was completely new, completely total discovery of new culture, new climate, new people, new everything, and it was beautiful.
What impressed you the most?
The smile of people. The smile. It was. I mean, I have really beautiful memories of that. Yes, and yes, and the diversity, because we went from north to south and all the way to Sapa, and it you know, the diversity is something that is really special. And there's so many. Also, we visited a lot of craftsmanship villages along our ways, and you know, we've seen so many things that we didn't even know was still possible to do, and so yes, it was a total surprise.
So from the glass garden to the lullaby garden, it seems like the theme of home country Vietnam kept coming back to you from one artwork to another. Why so?
Well, you start out with what you are most familiar with, and I think it gives you a sense of comfort. You know, I don't have to look far and wide. You don't have to searching for something new. I thought, well, since not many people in the state, especially the public, they don't know much about Vietnam. You know, yes, people know about the Vietnam War, but they don't know much about the culture, the people, and especially the artistic side of things. You know, and I thought, why not? You know, bring that into the work, and you can't force it either. It came very naturally. It just, you know, it's something that I say, in a way, you telling a story in your own way. I mean, you come up with your own story, and it just being able to share maybe something. It's not. It doesn't have to be a Vietnamese garden or heavily influenced from the, you know, the culture or anything. But it just, there's something about it, and we've been very fortunate that it was very well received. You know, it's a little bit exotic. And people don't know where it's come from, and sometimes you have to elaborate. You know, and tell them a little bit more about the art and crafts and the story, and it just, you know, and that's how it is. At some time, there could be something very European, something very French coming from Xavier, and we just having fun. We're just having fun the whole time. I mean, it's work, but really you have to enjoy what you do. And I think for us, if we were to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it any other way. You know, it's just like, it's been wonderful.
Recipients of multiple awards, both professionally and academically, Cao Perrot has been honored nearly 40 times in many parts of the world. Cao Perrot's work has appeared in 7 major landscape industry exhibitions, landscape garden festivals, and international garden museums. In 2015, Cao Perrot won the Best of the Year award in the installation category, organized by the U.S. Interior Design magazine for the Crystal Cloud installation at Swarovski Crystal Worlds, Wharton, Austria, which received nearly 60,000 votes from the international architects and designers. To complete this work, Cao Perrot had to use nearly 60,000 high-grade crystals for the clouds, which were mounted on steel columns. When hit by sunlight, the crystals would shimmer, creating a dazzling space. Andy Cao and Xavier Perrot are featured in the book 60 Innovators That Shaped Our Creative Future, published by Thames and Hudson, UK. The caption reads, "Their works combine the lightness of the materials used and natural light. This interaction creates a magical, dreamlike space. Each medium chosen evokes certain emotions. Culture and personal memories are combined with high intensity and contrast to stimulate viewers' vision."
You have many artworks and installations around the world. Do you have any favorite ones? What is your most favorite project or artwork, installation?
Oh, it's like asking which baby do you prefer. We can't really. I mean, they all have their special.
I know you're going to answer that because it's difficult to because it's all from you and at the very particular moment in your life.
There's always a story. Yes, it's true.
Yes.
And there's. I mean, of course, we can look at our. It's not because it's the biggest work, but the park we did for Swarovski in Austria. I like it particularly, I guess, because it's really the combination of what we like the most, meaning really bridging the landscape and art really together and seamless in a seamless way, and at the big scale as well. So it really gives this opportunity for people to really experience in a large scale, what we do. In the past, we were doing a smaller scale project, which were great as well. But this one is just another dimension, I would say, another way of being immersed in our space. So it's that's something interesting. But again, it's not particularly a favorite.
I see. What about the most challenging project?
Well, there's always challenges actually, because when we dream of something, most of the time it's something that it's potentially sort of complex for many reasons. Sometimes it's just technical, or when we take the example of our crystal clouds at Changi Airport in Singapore for the jewel building. The big challenge was just the space itself, because it's a very high ceiling and we are limited in weight, the loads and all of that. So you have to calculate and to bring in all the really good experts in aerodynamics and the engineers specialized in these fields to figure out a way to make everything look like effortless at the end of the day. So the challenge is really to make it look effortless. That's
But behind that
always
is
our
math
challenge.
and calculation, right?
There
You
is
need a really
math
good
and-
engineer,
Yes.
Yeah.
structural engineer. Yeah.
Andy Cao's trips to Vietnam over the past 10 years have not only been about finding ideas and mediums, but also his desire to create landscape work in Vietnam. Andy Cao brought his crystal clouds, which have graced exhibitions and artworks around the world, to Mâm Xôi Hill in Mù Cang Chải, Yên Bái Province. For more than a month and a half, Cao Perrot and nearly 30 locals hung 58,000 Swarovski crystal clouds on top of rice terraces made by the locals themselves. The effect of the crystal's light against the beautiful and vast landscape gave visitors the feeling of being lost in a fairyland.
So, Xavier, what is the message that you want to send to people through the Mâm Xôi project?
Anything is possible. In the sense that, as Andy was telling the story of all these people who have never been involved in this kind of work, of course, or aesthetic, and yes, there's something beautiful that happens right there, right in front of us or with us, and yes, that's. Something very meaningful for us. Since the project, the artwork itself or the installation is such for a short time, of course, what's left is the memory, and people will talk about it, and that's what is nice in the especially in the mountains. I think there's still all of this tradition of telling tales and stories and so on, and one could just imagine, okay, what will happen to this crystal cloud 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. Right. Once upon a time, there was a crystal cloud on Mâm Xôi.
Yeah.
We don't know, but I can imagine that there is something that will stay with all these people, and maybe it will become something else in the future, and go pass on from generation to generation. Right. And at some point, you just maybe 100 years from now, was it real? Was it true? Or maybe nobody knows anymore. But it's okay. Yeah. It's just a beautiful story and tale that is just weaved into the culture somehow.
It's beautiful how you put it that way. And maybe it can inspire some children, the children when they see this, and maybe they want to follow your footstep and create beautiful things as well. Do you think so?
That would be the best compliment.
So now I want to talk about your oak garden project. It is also part of your ambition, right, to bring Vietnam, to make Vietnam become a new destination for the world to come to see.
It's very simple in concept, but it's quite ambition in execution. Well, when you say oak garden, what is it? And I said, well, when you talk about oak, everybody knows. You don't have to explain, but foreigners wouldn't say, "What's that?" But when you say 100 gardens, then that's it. Oak garden, and kind of from north to south, 100 voices. Different 100 expression, 100 way of looking at landscape. And it's a personal. aspiration. So it's sort of like, it's a big dream. But I want the time I'm here in Vietnam, you know, if I'm living here in Vietnam for 10 years, you know, and, you know, Xavier and I, or myself, or something, but it's like do something that is meaningful, that is worth doing. And I thought, well, you can design a garden anywhere around the world, but what is it one thing that you can do in Vietnam, but you cannot do anywhere else? And that will have to be the ochre garden, because when I do an ochre garden elsewhere, it has no meaning. It has no connection to anything.
Yes.
And it can only happen in Vietnam. And I thought, well, one garden is very small, it's not worth talking about, but 100 gardens, now there's something to look at, you know, and the culture and everything can reflect in it, you know. I like to hear voices. I like to see different expression, and you can. And the hardest thing is to give something that feeling that is very Vietnamese. I don't know what it is, and you can't put it in words, but you can only feel it. And you look at it, you say, oh, it's so Vietnamese. You know, like Vietnamese music. Yeah. Anywhere around the world, if you hear it, you say, oh, it's so Vietnamese. What is it? You know, and I just want to bring that, inject that part, that feeling, you know, that connection into the work, into this garden. So it's nothing earth-shattering. It's like, you know, many firms that can do 30 gardens a year, you know. And when you say 100 gardens, yeah, it takes time. It's challenging if you want to be as original as you could be. And you just have to give it time.
Right.
You know, 10 years, 20 years.
But have you started that project?
The ideas are set, you know. It's just that it takes time. When it's time, we just start doing it, you know, and one garden at a time, you know. It's like it's like your own personal artwork. You know, you don't put time on it. You don't put a timeline on it. And you know, for example, when we work with Swarovski, we know about them and we dream about them for 14 years until the time is right, that it happened. You know, so we have time. For me, myself, I feel very lucky. I feel very fortunate to be here at this moment. I mean, come back to Vietnam, and you know, we've been living here for 2 years, yeah, and every day is a new surprise. It's just really a good place to be right now, and
in the sense of
continue what you do, doing a new body of work. Exploring different options, different possibility, and I just think less and do more. That's what we're doing now. We just, you know, get out there, get to work, and the new kind of work is challenging. It's different, and it's. Some are more ambitious in scale, and it's you always constantly testing your limit, and I think that's the best place to be. You know, we can't ask for anything more. I mean, I'm feeling very happy at the moment. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Andy and Xavier, for joining Talk Vietnam, and thanks to your beautiful sharing. We have a lot to believe in your future projects, and we wish you all the best for the ochre project. And hopefully that Vietnam will become a new destination for people who love arts to come and see it here in Vietnam.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And that has brought us to the end of this edition of Talk Vietnam. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.